Welcome to the NFL Total Access Desk, brought to you by Snickers. Lindsey Rhodes and Scott Hansen counting you down to Super Bowl 54 in Miami.
A lot of excitement in the area right now, Lindsey. Fans excited to see which players have what it takes to take home the trophy, and if anyone will be off of their game. Which player do you think is going to be hungriest on Sunday?
That's a great question. Let's toss it out live to Super Bowl Experience in Miami, Florida, to see what the fans think.
James Boyster here of the Route Pros, here to talk to you about Super Bowl 54. You know, it's been a heck of an adventure for the Kansas City Chiefs as we look back at, basically Super Bowl I, the Kansas City Chiefs lost to the Green Bay Packers and Vince Lombardi. Super Bowl IV, we won the Super Bowl against the Minnesota Vikings 23-7. But it's not about that. It's about vlogs. And here I am at the NFL Experience, still talking Route Pros, still talking dry cleaning. Hopefully you guys are enjoying all these vlogs. We love giving them to you. Thank you.
That was an interesting take. We will see what happens on Sunday.
For now, that'll do it for us from NFL Network. Thank you for stopping by the NFL Total Access Desk, brought to you by Snickers.
Welcome to another Route Pro vlog. I am standing in front of Arrowhead Stadium, home of my beloved Kansas City Chiefs, as we are preparing for Super Bowl 54. By the time you watched it, the results already happened. But I'm also standing right behind the statue of Lamar Hunt. And if you can see it, it says he's a humble leader. He was the creator of the AFL, founder of really the Super Bowl. He coined it himself and really had that vision to get the AFL, the American Football League, to pair up with the NFL. Lamar Hunt, they named the trophy for the AFC the winner, and the Kansas City Chiefs, as you guys know, won it this year, bringing the Lamar Hunt trophy back home. However, it's not just about Lamar Hunt being a humble leader. This week's vlog is about the coach, the incredible Vince Lombardi, where the ultimate pursuit of perfection and commitment comes from. For the Super Bowl, whoever wins the Super Bowl gets the Lombardi Trophy. Hopefully it'll be my Kansas City Chiefs, but hopefully this vlog will educate you, entertain you, and also really kind of show you the commitment to perfection that Coach Vince Lombardi had, so that you can be a leader no matter what your endeavor is. I hope you enjoy. What did Lombardi represent? He represented greatness. He represented the prized possession of all, the Super Bowl trophy. I am here at the event Super Bowl 54 as I get ready to see what I think is the greatest trophy, the greatest accomplishment of all sports, the Super Bowl trophy, named after Lombardi. It's kind of emotional for me to walk up here and see it as I look at it and say, here it is. The commitment to greatness, perfection, and execution. That is why Lombardi is considered the greatest coach of all time. Thank you.
Lombardi. A certain magic still lingers in the very name. It speaks of duels in the snow and cold November mud. For 9 years, Lombardi coached the Green Bay Packers. He drove them to 5 NFL championships and victories in the first 2 Super Bowls. His game plans contained a minimum of simple plays executed with a maximum of effort.
If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here. and a seal here and try to run this play in the alley. What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody touching. Just grabbing, everybody. Grab, grab, grab. Nobody touching. Put your shoulders in there out there.
Beneath his stormy surface flowed the warm tide of compassion and kindness.
I know I'm an emotional man. In order for me, for example, to give everything of myself, to take the mental anguish that's all part of this game, the emotionalism that's all part of this game, in order for me to do this for someone else, I think there has to be a certain amount of love for that other person. There's love for each other, in other words, in the game of football.
Lombardi believed in the old-fashioned virtues, which were stamped all over his teams. Hard work, second effort, loyalty, and love. His genius was that he was able to inspire so many of his players to grasp these ideals. Lombardi's influence extended not only to his own team, but during his short career as head coach, many hundreds of thousands of other young athletes warmed their own competitive spirits by the bright fire of this man who stood for everything that was solid and successful in American sports.
The great John Facenda providing the voiceover for that NFL Films clip that you just saw about Lombardi. Here is the actual Lombardi Trophy at the NFL Experience, the ultimate trophy, I think, of all sports. And when I think about business and I think about your job or your life, you know, I love what Lombardi said. You know, he had several quotes. I mean, he had 100 and something quotes. Well, we're going to provide you 16 quotes in this week's webinar, and these are 16 quotes that kind of flow together. They segue together. They talk about hard work. Then they talk about lessons learned, never quitting, stuff like that. And it ends with that commitment to excellence, kind of like your journey. No matter what you're doing, you kind of have this ongoing journey as you step forward, as you take a leap of faith each and every time you go to make a sell or you make a contact. Every time you make a decision, every time you make a game plan, anything you do individually and as a team, it matters every step of the way. So I hope you enjoy this vlog. I hope you enjoy these quotes. We're going to go through them, critique them, break them down, and hopefully you'll see that it kind of tells a story from hard work to commitment to excellence. This first Lombardi quote is talking about leaders aren't born, but they're made. They're made by hard effort. And I think a lot of times we think hard effort means working 20 hours a day, and that's not the case. You know, it ends with the goal in mind, as you can see by this quote. You know, the price you pay, the commitment. You know, a lot of times people think hard work means that you make life easier each and every moment. That's not true. A lot of times people call it a day early, or they'll say, I'll do it tomorrow. They'll procrastinate. Well, that's why leaders rise above the pack. And you don't have to be in a management role to be a leader. We have a lot of industry leaders within the Route Pro group. These are the individuals that stand out and they stand up. They're the ones that make it happen. Whether they're a manager, a developer, a D1 through a D4, you can be a leader, even though you may not necessarily have the title. And again, it is the price you pay to achieve goals. Keep these things in mind. Here's another quote by Lombardi, a little simpler version. Hard work is the price we must pay for success. And you notice I added 4 little E's down there that I've always kind of combined as ingredients of hard work. You got earnest work, you've got energetic, engaged, and then the ultimate, endurance. You know, when you run a race, when you run a 100-yard dash, you don't just stop at the finish line. You run right past it. You run right through it. Otherwise, you're like, well, if my goal is just to finish the race, well, then as I get close, I'll probably slow down and I'll probably just kind of just stop right there. Well, that's not how you win the race. You run through it and you run faster. And sometimes people's goal is to run faster, even past when they hit the finish line. Why? Because they know as they continue to run that race and compete, they're going to dig harder, dig deeper. They're going to show energy. You know, this is really the price we must pay. I think a lot of times people think success will come easy. And that's never the case. We venture on with another Lombardi quote. This one's pretty long, but it has two main ingredients that I always like to highlight: dedication, determination. Those two double D's really come handy when you are looking at the opportunity you got right in front of you. If you're dedicated to the job and you're determined to finish it, you're determined to be your best, you will give it your best, you will give it your all. Doesn't mean you're always going to win or lose, like Lombardi says, but it is part of that price of success. If there's a cost associated with it, well, then it is the dedication. I am going to give it my best, and I'm determined to win the race. I'm determined to win the game. I'm determined to get my goals, not just hit my minimums. Those that just seek out their minimums week after week is doing the minimum of the job. And if you're doing that, you're not giving it your all. And unfortunately, what happens is it starts to become a habit. It starts to become part of your routine. Lombardi sometimes has a 3 or 4 sentence quote, and then sometimes he simplifies it once again. The only way to succeed in anything is to give it everything. Now, again, I always like to say when you give it your all, it is not every moment, every waking moment of your life. Don't wake up in the morning and start instantly thinking about work, and don't finish the day going to bed saying, hey, how many more doors can I knock on till midnight? That is not giving it everything. Everything is your best effort, which includes not only the physical component, but the emotional and the mindset that has to go with success. We talk about we can all the time. And that's really giving it your everything, knowing that you gave it your all, knowing that when you come home from work and you look yourself in the mirror and you say, I did my best. When I'm on projects, I get back to the hotel each and every day and I look at the mirror and say, I'm proud of what I did. I gave it my best effort. What could I have done better? Maybe we'll apply that tomorrow or the next project. But that's how you give it your all. One of Lombardi's most famous quotes, one that is quite often printed out anywhere, is the only place success comes before work is in the dictionary. The millennials quite often get finger pointed and prejudged, saying that they're lazy, that they don't want to work hard, that they want to work smart. There's nothing wrong with that mindset. But even when I was that age, I know sometimes I'm like playing the lottery. I want to get rich. I want to find my dream job. Well, that doesn't happen quite often. Same thing when you're trying to develop somebody. If you're in a leadership position, a lot of times we want to find these super developers. But most of you guys that are successful were homegrown. But it took hard work. It took commitment, dedication, and endurance. So again, keep this quote in mind that the only time success comes before work is in the dictionary. And I just think this is the simplest and most eloquent quote that you can have that is so true in not only his day, but in our world as well. See, I don't think you have to be a big sports fan to love what Lombardi has to say here. The difference between a successful person and others, and I love this, it's not a lack of strength or a lack of knowledge, but a lack of will. And I think that's so true in anything we do, personally or professionally. Take a self-reflection look at yourself. Are you willing to learn more to earn more? Mark, Mike, and I, we truly enjoy working with those that are striving to get better at the position, whether that's the first time we've been there or the 11th time we've been there. There's a big difference between those that succeed, and a lot of times we've been talking about success stories in our previous vlogs. For me, it's somebody that improves themselves, that gets better at the position, that seeks out knowledge and endurance and dedication. That's my definition of success, the fact that you've bettered yourself, which then includes bettering your organization. Keep that in mind and do some self-reflection here, because I think that's a biggie. Our final quote about hard work could be the first quote in the we can world. I look at this quote and I think it's one that you could just sink in with. I think you should read this over time after time. Vince Lombardi talked about life's battles. This isn't about sports. This is life, professionally or personally. And again, it isn't always the best individual that succeeds, but the one that thinks they can. So look at this quote. I'm just going to let it seep in. You write it down. Maybe you pause the video here and you take a look at it and see what this maybe mean to you, whether it's now, past, or present. 7-0's the score. 7 for hard work. Right now, nothing to quitters. And we're going to talk about quitting, but really it's about moving forward and lessons learned. This is one of his most popular quotes. Winners never quit and quitters never win. You know, we have trained a lot of people that had so much potential that's out there. We think they're going to knock them dead. And then we'll get the call from the owner or manager that they're cutting out at 2 o'clock, that they didn't show up on a Saturday sales blitz or Wednesday afternoon. They don't participate in the meetings. When you quit learning, you quit trying to get better, or your willingness kind of deteriorates, you're not going to succeed. And this is a very, very easy quote to look at and say, well, wow, it's pretty harsh, but it's truthful. It just really kind of digs into me sometimes. I think of moments in my life where I just kind of gave up and said, that's as good as it's going to get. Well, guess what? It's right. You will not get any better. Take this one in. Maybe you write this in your leadership board somewhere, but keep this in mind. Once you learn to quit, it becomes a habit. Boy, part 2 of lessons learned is really getting smacked in the side of the head with this one. And it is so true. Maybe we replace the word habit with excuses. We've all been there as a route developer. You know, you go out there and you say, I just don't feel it. Well, I don't feel it. And I've heard people say, I don't knock on yellow houses and I won't do it with that. This becomes our own habit, and thus our results start to deteriorate. We start to fail. We really start to not fail forward. We start failing backwards. Once you give up the chase, you will not win that race. And I think this is one that I think we all should also think about, whether we're in leadership or in a route development world. Once you learn to quit, it becomes a habit. And I'll tell you, if you're in this position, it's time to take a look in the mirror and reverse the course. This one really intrigues me. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. And this was really kind of cool. This is where we start moving forward, I think, from the lessons learned. Because, you know, once we start looking at our own actions and start kind of documenting what we do, that's why we do Spotio or Active Knocker or whatever. You know, this is why we track. This is why we have meetings. This is why we have dashboards. Because we look at our actions, our own self-accountability or motivation. But if we watch our habits and say, hey, this is how we make it happen, this defines who you are. And this is who defines those that rise above to the cream of the crop. The ones that we are successful with, the ones that we group around, hang around. We want to be around successful others. And that's why, again, the key to this is when you watch your habits, it becomes your character. It defines who you are. It is your aura, or it is your glow, or it's just infectious. Keep that in mind each and every day. You know, we talk about habits to talking about mindsets. You know, we can accomplish many things if we did not think they were impossible. I just love this quote. I know I'm kind of maybe misquoting it. But here's the thing that I see. This is another we can chant, another we can moment. This is kind of the difference between those that succeed and tell themselves each and every door they get is one step closer to the yes, to the others that are knocking on the door saying this is going to be another no. If you're in that second part, make sure you reach out to your owner or your manager and say, hey, help me out. I need help. Reach out to us. If you're in that position of leadership or management, make sure your job is to expect everybody to succeed. They're going to struggle in the field, and when they come back to home base, which they're hoping to be the safe base, do not give them more negativity. It's only going to increase the chances of failure. So again, think on this quote for a while. Maybe you pause and reflect on it as well as a group. This is probably my favorite all-time Lombardi quote. There's a lot of them. I can remember this one in my youth when I was playing football as a kid. Our coach was a huge Lombardi fan, and why not? And he'd always write this down. The greatest accomplishment is not in never falling, but rising again after you fall. And you could say even failing and fails. The same thing. You know, we're going to get knocked down. We're going to get knocked down by prospects. We're going to get knocked down by customers. We're going to get knocked down in our own organization. But rising up, dusting yourself off, and moving forward and stepping on, this is key. You know, as a lot of people know, I was really short in grade school and high school. And yes, I was picked on pretty much all the time. But I never let that get to me. I mean, it could have easily. I would dust myself off and I would move forward and continue on in that journey. You can do that as well, no matter what position you have in the company. Here's another variation of that, quote, and this is probably just as important as the other one. I mean, and here's how I look at it. In life, we get a lot of hurdles. We get roadblocks. We get brick walls. And these are things that stand in our way of us moving forward. I think of all the things that have happened in my life that could have easily discouraged me. When I first started in this industry, a lot of people laughed at me and said I wasn't going to make it. Well, you never owned a dry cleaner. Still to this day, Mark and I, experience a little bit of a Facebook pushback. And again, this is just people trying to shoot you down, whether they're jealous of you, whether they're envious of you, whether they want you to fail. Maybe they're just evil in general. Don't let that get to you, especially at work. At work, you're in a position to succeed, and you're surrounded by a lot of people that want you to succeed. Don't ever forget about that. Don't ever forget that Mark, Mike, and I are here for you. Don't ever forget that your leader should be there for you as well. 3 more to go, guys. What's really interesting about Lombardi's quotes, this one's about most people fail not because of lack of desire, but a lack of commitment. And when I think of the word commitment, I think about how much effort you're really putting in, but truly how much you believe, not only in the company and not in the process, but also in yourself. If you can believe in all 3, your commitment level will rise. And if you are a manager and you're committed to the success of your staff, their results will rise. Your business will increase. You'll become more profitable. That's why it's such a 1-2 punch between leadership and really the involvement of the staff. You got to work together. You got to support each other. It's an investment of time and money on both sides. So again, be committed. Be 100% committed. When somebody signs up for the Route Pros, we tell them we need 100% commitment. You as a staff member, you as a manager or a driver can do the same as well. I think this is a pretty easy mathematical formula to follow from Lombardi. The quality of someone's life, well, I think, again, whether it's personal or professional, is in direct proportion to their commitment to excellence. Doesn't mean perfection, but it is being that, giving it your all. And I love how he ends it with, regardless of your chosen endeavor. I saw a movie a long time ago in the 80s, I think it was called Crossing Delancey, and this rich girl fell in love with this guy that sold pickles on the corner. And he was really kind of had a good sense of humor. And she asked one of her best friends, why should I marry this guy? And her best friend said, and I'll never forget it, because he's the best pickle salesman ever. No matter what your position is, give it your best. Strive to be the best. I put on a vision board a long time ago. I wanted to be the most sought-after consultant by 2010. And I believe we reached that goal a year earlier. Now with the staff that I have, we're only getting better. We always ask for commitment on your part because we are 100% committed to you. All right, we're past the 2-minute warning. We're in the red zone, and here's where I think it wraps it all up for a game-winning score. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. I think this is something to sit back and just reflect on. And what that really means to me, and hopefully it means something to you, is I know we're going to make mistakes. I mean, we make it in leadership. We make it in sales. We make it in production. But if we strive to be perfect, we strive to give it our best, we will have excellent results. It's a proven formula that I think a lot of times managers forget about. It's real easy for all of us to point out where people make mistakes. But if we can also point out things they do well, they're going to succeed. And you'll get an excellence, either bonding rapport with your staff or results as well. Lombardi hit a home run here, or maybe I shouldn't say that. I should say, he threw a game-winning score. I mean, this is really what it's about, is about trying to catch excellence and the commitment to that. I hope you enjoyed those 16 quotes to live by, to work by from Vince Lombardi. There's 100 of them to choose from. I'm on Miami Beach, a few days away from the Super Bowl, and I'm thinking about how these two teams, the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers, are preparing for this championship. The hard part about it is we don't know what the outcome's going to be. By the time you've watched this, it already has happened. But what you can do is you can say, look, I'm going to give it my best. I think the biggest takeaways, like I said before, Lombardi taught a lot of people to give it their all. George Steinbrenner said it best. He said, give it 110%. And once you give 110%, that 10% improvement, it becomes your new norm. And next year, you can give another 110%. I think it's a pretty cool little analogy. Pretty mathematical in one realm, but in general, it means you're always striving to get better. What I think about Lombardi best, it wasn't that you had to be perfect. It's just you strive for perfection. Thus, you get excellence. We venture on here in Miami as Super Bowl 54 waits me, and hopefully you're getting some takeaways from Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi is shown here with Hank Stram at Super Bowl I. This is amazing because, to me, this is one of the more grand moments of all of sports. The Super Bowl that started it all. You look, the crowd wasn't even full. But again, these were two leaders that brought their teams to a championship game. But I think Lombardi probably stands out above everybody else for many reasons. One, he commanded respect. He really expected his players to respect him. Now, just because you're put in a leadership position doesn't mean you automatically are going to have followers. You've got to earn that right to get their respect. He commanded it, but he also deserved it. He also truly cared about his players. See, I think this was a really important part. Because he respected them as well as cared about them, they performed at levels nobody had ever seen. Vince Lombardi also had vision. You know, if you see some of the highlights that he had of the plays, they were intricate, but they were basically followed by his players. And he showed him the path. He showed him on the chalkboard. He showed it on a whiteboard like we would at home. Take that advice, you know, draw out what it looks like, show your vision to your staff, and you will get results. Also, one of the things that I think is also important, he collaborated with his team. If you look at the Ice Bowl, one of the most famous championship games of all time, Bart Starr came over and said, I think we can punch it in. They could have kicked a game-tying field goal, but instead they went for it. He listened to his team, and he collaborated with them on important decisions. No matter what role you play in your company, this is a very important element that I think is missing. Sometimes there's no collaboration. We just kind of do it without asking. And so, again, work with your team, not against it. And finally, he celebrated. He celebrated their success. You can see him at the end of Super Bowl II. It was going to be his last game as a Green Bay Packers head coach. But the smile he had, and they celebrated. They celebrated minor victories, and they celebrated major victories. This is probably why I think this is another element that's missing in leadership. And again, if you're in a position of leadership, take this to heart because I think it's very important. Super Bowl final score, 31-20. Thanks to all your guys' texts for this. We'll get this vlog to you, but thanks a lot, guys. We had a great time here in Kansas City. Unbelievable Super Bowl. The texts keep flying in. We really appreciate the love you're showing Kansas City. Thanks a lot to Route Pro Nation.